Welcome to the War Archive, where wars become stories. For decades, aircraft carriers have symbolized something close to certainty. They are floating cities of steel, surrounded by destroyers, radar, and aircraft, projecting American power across the oceans. Their presence alone is meant to reassure allies and discourage challengers before a single shot is fired. Yet in quiet war games conducted by the U.S. Navy itself, aircraft carriers do not always dominate the opening phase of a conflict. Not because they are poorly designed, but because modern warfare no longer rewards size and firepower alone. It rewards disruption, ambiguity, and the ability to strike without clear warning. Imagine a calm stretch of water in the Persian Gulf. Civilian cargo ships move slowly through narrow shipping lanes, indistinguishable from the constant flow of global trade. Everything appears ordinary, until a container door opens, and a missile emerges from a vessel that was never meant to be part of a battle. This moment captures the logic behind Iran's entire strategy. Tehran does not intend to confront the United States ship for ship in a conventional naval fight it cannot win. Instead, it seeks to blur the line between peace and conflict, turning routine movement into potential threat. Iran does not need to sink an aircraft carrier to alter the balance of power. It only needs to make the Gulf feel uncertain, a place where hesitation replaces confidence. And once that certainty breaks, even the strongest navy in the world is forced to slow down, reassess, and operate on unfamiliar terms. Iran's approach to war was not born from confidence, but from constraint. Decades of sanctions, technological isolation, and the experience of fighting a larger enemy during the Iran-Iraq War taught Tehran a hard reality. It would never match the United States in ships, aircraft, or spending. Survival demanded a different way of thinking. Instead of pursuing symmetry, Iran embraced imbalance. Asymmetric warfare became a doctrine focused on exploiting the weak points of stronger opponents. Logistics, predictability, and political tolerance for risk. The goal is not to defeat American forces outright, but to make their advantages difficult to use. The Persian Gulf magnifies this logic. It is narrow, shallow, crowded with civilian traffic, and politically sensitive, compressing reaction time and blurring the boundary between civilian and military space. In such conditions, even a small disruption can force an outsized response. Iran's strategy operates in the space below full-scale war. It aims to impose uncertainty without triggering immediate escalation, to raise the cost of presence rather than challenge it directly. In that gray zone, where clarity fades and risk multiplies, asymmetric warfare becomes not just effective, but decisive. Iran's most visible naval tactic relies on numbers rather than firepower. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates hundreds of small, fast attack boats, inexpensive, lightly armored, and easy to replace. Individually, they pose little threat. Moving together, they are designed to overwhelm. The logic of the swarm is unforgiving. A U.S. destroyer can track and engage a limited number of targets with precision, but dozens of fast-moving boats approaching from multiple directions compress reaction time to seconds. Rockets, machine guns, and anti-ship missiles are fired not to destroy immediately, but to saturate defenses. On radar screens, the swarm appears as a flood of small contacts spreading across the display. Defensive systems must track, classify, and prioritize each target in real time. When too many threats appear at once, the system is not defeated. It is overloaded, forced to choose what to stop and what to let through. For the crews on deck, the pressure is intense. High-speed boats closing from every angle turn open water into a confined arena where hesitation can be fatal. In that chaos, Iran does not need perfect execution, only enough confusion to open the door for the next phase of the attack. If the swarm is designed to overwhelm the senses, Iran's next weapon works through silence. Naval mines do not chase targets or announce their presence. They wait. In the confined waters of the Strait of Hormuz, that waiting becomes a powerful form of control. The strait is one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, a narrow passage through which a significant share of global oil exports must pass each day. Iran maintains thousands of naval mines, ranging from simple contact devices to more advanced types capable of detecting specific acoustic signatures. Their purpose is not dramatic destruction, but the denial of confidence. History shows how effective this can be. In 1988, a single Iranian naval mine nearly sank the U.S. frigate USS Samuel B. Roberts, ripping a massive hole in its hull and injuring its crew. The ship survived, but the incident proved that a weapon costing a few $1,000s could cripple a warship worth hundreds of millions. Mines can be deployed quietly by small boats, submarines, or vessels disguised as civilian traffic, then left behind. The real damage begins afterward, when every ship must slow, reroute, or wait, while clearance operations move forward at a deliberate pace. Even the suspicion of mines is often enough to disrupt shipping, turning the strait itself into a question mark the world cannot ignore. Beyond the water's edge, Iran's most reliable advantage is the land itself. The southern coastline is rugged, mountainous, and deeply familiar to those who defend it, terrain that offers concealment, mobility, and countless firing positions. In this landscape, missiles do not need to dominate the sea, they only need to reach it. Iran has built a network of mobile coastal missile batteries designed to appear briefly, fire, and disappear. Mounted on trucks and operated by small crews, these systems rely on shoot-and-scoot tactics, relocating within minutes to avoid counterstrikes. Every stretch of coastline becomes a potential launch point, and no fixed position can be assumed safe. From the deck of an American ship, the Gulf feels compressed and unforgiving. Warning times shrink to moments, leaving little room for maneuver or error. Defensive systems become reactive shields rather than guarantees, responding to threats that emerge suddenly from land. In this environment, the coast itself becomes a weapon. Naval power optimized for open oceans is drawn into a confined arena where proximity favors the defender. The result is not a single decisive blow, but a steady erosion of freedom, each transit shadowed by the knowledge that the shoreline is watching. Beneath the surface of the Persian Gulf lies a threat that is easy to underestimate and difficult to counter. The water here is shallow, warm, and filled with background noise from shipping and coastal activity, conditions that complicate sonar detection. What restricts large nuclear submarines instead favors smaller, quieter ones. Iran has invested in diesel-electric mini-submarines designed specifically for these waters. Compact and low signature, they can rest motionless on the seafloor, blending into the acoustic clutter of the Gulf. In this role, they do not patrol aggressively. They wait. An ambush from below compresses reaction time to seconds. A torpedo launched at close range is not intended to sink a ship in spectacular fashion, but to damage propulsion, steering, or critical systems. Even a single hit can force a vessel to withdraw, turning presence into vulnerability. The psychological impact is immediate. When the threat cannot be seen, every movement becomes cautious and deliberate. The Gulf shifts from a transit route into an ambush corridor, where danger may already be waiting in silence beneath the hull. Iran's strategy does not depend on the dramatic image of an aircraft carrier sinking beneath the waves. Destroying one outright would cross a political threshold that risks uncontrollable escalation. Instead, the objective is more calculated: to make the carrier ineffective. An aircraft carrier's true power lies in its flight deck, its sensors, and its freedom to maneuver. Damage the deck, disrupt radar, or impair propulsion, and that power collapses quickly. Even temporary degradation can halt flight operations, grounding aircraft and breaking the rhythm of sustained air dominance. From Iran's perspective, perfection is unnecessary. A small fraction of missiles or torpedoes penetrating layered defenses can be enough to force a carrier strike group into withdrawal. The moment a carrier must focus on protecting itself rather than projecting power, the strategic equation begins to shift. The symbolic cost matters as much as the physical damage. Aircraft carriers are meant to signal certainty and control simply by being present. When that presence falters, even briefly, it communicates a dangerous truth. Supremacy at sea is conditional, and in the Gulf, it can be challenged without sinking a single ship. If missiles and submarines threaten the hull, drones aim for something even more fragile: awareness. Over the past decade, Iran has invested heavily in unmanned aerial systems, not to dominate the air, but to erode the ability of its enemies to see and coordinate. In modern naval warfare, information often matters more than firepower. Iran's drones would likely arrive in layered waves, mixing surveillance platforms with loitering munitions. Some are meant to be obvious, drawing fire, and revealing radar coverage and response patterns. Others are designed to slip through, striking radar arrays, communication antennas, and flight deck equipment that keeps a carrier group synchronized. The imbalance is intentional. A relatively inexpensive drone can force the launch of an interceptor missile costing many times more, slowly draining defensive magazines. Even minor damage to sensors can leave powerful ships operating with incomplete information, reacting rather than anticipating. Once awareness degrades, every other threat becomes more dangerous. Missiles arrive with less warning, submarines gain freedom of movement, and swarms exploit hesitation. In this layered strategy, drones are not the final blow. They are the fracture that makes all other attacks harder to stop. Naval power at sea depends on infrastructure on land. Every aircraft launched, every missile fired, and every ship sustained relies on a network of airbases, ports, fuel depots, and command centers spread across the Gulf. Iran understands that if this backbone is weakened, even the strongest fleet begins to slow. Tehran possesses the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East, placing key U.S. facilities within range. Bases in Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, and Kuwait are fixed targets. Runways cannot move, fuel tanks cannot hide, and command centers must remain connected to function at all. The objective is not annihilation, but disruption. Strikes against runways, aircraft shelters, fuel storage, and logistics nodes can sharply reduce sortie rates and delay reinforcements. Even limited damage forces commanders to shift focus from sustained operations to defense and repair. If carriers cannot be resupplied and aircraft cannot operate at full tempo, naval superiority becomes theoretical. By pushing the fight onto land, Iran targets the system that enables American power, turning distant support hubs into frontline vulnerabilities. To be clear, the United States is not defenseless in the Gulf. Carrier strike groups are protected by layered systems, advanced radar, the AEGIS combat system, electronic warfare, and interceptor missiles designed to detect and destroy incoming threats. In controlled conditions, many attacks can be identified and stopped before they ever reach a ship. The problem is not capability, but volume. When missiles, drones, boats, and submarines operate simultaneously from different directions, even the most advanced defenses face saturation. Defensive systems must prioritize in real time, choosing which threats to engage first and which to accept risk against. This is where psychology becomes as important as technology. Each interception expends ammunition, drains attention, and compresses decision-making windows. Over time, the pressure forces commanders to slow operations, conserve resources, and reassess exposure, all without suffering catastrophic losses. For Iran, this balance is intentional. The aim is to impose cost while staying below the threshold of total war, applying pressure without triggering an overwhelming response. Escalation control becomes a strategy in itself, shaping behavior through uncertainty rather than decisive confrontation. Iran's strategy rarely operates in isolation. One of its greatest advantages is the ability to widen a conflict without formally expanding it, using allied groups and proxy forces positioned across the region. This network allows pressure to be applied from multiple directions while maintaining ambiguity over responsibility. From Iraq to Yemen, proxy forces give Iran strategic depth. Drone launches, missile strikes, and maritime harassment can originate far from Iranian territory, stretching U.S. defenses and complicating response options. Each additional front forces American planners to divide attention, resources, and political focus. This approach turns geography into a multiplier. Shipping lanes in the Red Sea, bases near Iran's western border, and political stability within partner states all become interconnected pressure points. The battlefield grows wider without a declaration of war, transforming localized tension into a regional problem. By spreading friction instead of concentrating force, Iran seeks to exhaust rather than overwhelm. Control becomes fragile everywhere at once, and resolution grows more complex with every new front. A slow expansion of risk designed to favor endurance over decisive victory. Taken together, these tactics reveal a strategy that is often misunderstood. Iran is not preparing for a decisive naval victory, nor is it seeking to defeat the United States in a conventional sense. Its objective is narrower, quieter, and far more achievable: to make the Persian Gulf a place where American power cannot operate freely. Every swarm, mine, missile, drone, and proxy action feeds into the same outcome: uncertainty. When commanders cannot guarantee safe passage, when bases and logistics are under constant threat, and when every deployment carries political and economic risk, superiority begins to lose its practical meaning. Power that must always defend itself becomes power constrained. In such an environment, even the world's most capable navy is forced to slow down. Operations become cautious, allies grow uneasy, and markets react faster than diplomacy can stabilize them. The cost of staying starts to rival the cost of leaving, and control becomes a question rather than an assumption. This is the quiet danger of asymmetric warfare. It does not arrive with a single catastrophic moment, but with the steady erosion of confidence over time. In the narrow waters of the Gulf, Iran does not need to sink an aircraft carrier to change the balance of power. It only needs to make the sea feel unsafe.